The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with noise from 100 different species. Tall, bird-like creatures called Zephyrians sang to each other in sweet musical tones. Massive rock beings known as Cronets spoke with voices so deep they made the floor shake. Crystal creatures that looked like living diamonds made sounds like wind chimes when they talked. Every corner of the huge room was filled with alien voices, talking, laughing, and making deals. In the middle of all this chaos sat 3 humans at a small metal table. Captain Jake Morrison wore his dark blue uniform and watched everything with calm eyes. Next to him sat Dr. Lisa Grant, a woman with short brown hair who studied alien life forms. On his other side was Commander Ryan Burke, a strong man who planned military operations. All 3 humans sat very still and very quiet. The aliens around them noticed this strange behavior right away. While every other species in the hall talked loudly and made friends, the humans just sat there like statues. They only spoke when someone asked them a direct question, and even then they gave very short answers. A tall Zephyrian with bright blue feathers walked over to a group of other aliens near the human table. His name was Creedle, and he was an important ambassador for his people. He looked at the quiet humans and made a chirping sound that was like laughter for his species. "Look at the silent mammals," Creedle said to the other aliens. "Do they even know how to talk properly? My people sing beautiful songs to share our thoughts, but these creatures just grunt like animals." A huge Cronet general named Vorthak heard this and laughed so hard his rocky body made rumbling sounds. "Ha, they remind me of the old stories about my ancestors before they learned to speak. Just dumb beasts making simple noises." More aliens began to gather around and stare at the humans. They pointed and whispered to each other. Some made jokes about how the humans looked like they were sleeping with their eyes open. Others wondered if humans were actually smart enough to be here at all. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat at the end of the human table. She was supposed to help other species understand human culture, but there was not much she could do right now. She heard every joke and saw every pointing finger, but she kept her face blank and said nothing. Sometimes she looked at Captain Morrison or Dr. Grant with her eyes, but she never spoke. The mockery got worse as the day went on. More alien species joined in making fun of the quiet humans. The cat-like Felinians hissed with amusement. The plant-based Verdians rustled their leaves in what passed for laughter among their kind. Even the normally polite aquatic Hydrians made bubbling sounds that seemed to be jokes about human stupidity. Captain Morrison heard it all but never changed his expression. His face stayed calm and professional. When aliens tried to talk to him, he gave short, polite answers. When they asked about human culture, he said only what was absolutely necessary. This made the aliens think humans were either very rude or very stupid. Dr. Grant was a scientist who had studied alien behavior for years. She understood what the other species were thinking about humans, but she could not explain the truth to them. Instead, she took notes on a small electronic pad and said nothing else. Her silence made the aliens even more confused about human intelligence. Commander Burke was a military man who had fought in battles across the galaxy. He was used to giving orders and making quick decisions. But here in this room full of aliens, he sat as still as a rock. When other military officers from different species tried to talk strategy with him, he only nodded or gave one-word answers. This made them think humans were poor soldiers. As the hours passed, the jokes became more open and cruel. Aliens no longer whispered their insults about humans. They spoke loudly and laughed even louder. Some young Zephyrians started making a game of seeing who could come up with the most creative insult about human social skills. "I heard they communicate by hitting rocks together," said one young alien. "No, I think they just stare at each other." "Until someone falls asleep," said another. The insults spread through the crowd like wildfire. Soon, aliens from species that had never even met humans before were joining in the mockery. The humans became the joke of the entire gathering. Despite all this, the 3 humans never responded to the insults. They never defended themselves or tried to explain their behavior. They just sat quietly and waited for the formal ceremony to begin. Finally, the great ceremony started. A massive gong rang out across the hall and all the aliens took their seats. The leader of the Galactic Council, an ancient being made of pure energy, began the opening ritual. Each species was called upon to demonstrate their communication abilities and introduce themselves to the gathering. The Zephyrians sang a beautiful song that made the air shimmer with color. The Kronets gave a speech so powerful it made the walls vibrate. The crystal silicates created a light show that danced across the ceiling. Each species showed off their most impressive communication skills. When it was finally time for the humans to speak, the entire hall fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the quiet human table. Some aliens leaned forward, expecting to finally hear something interesting from these strange mammals. Captain Morrison stood up slowly. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, all waiting to see what the humans would do. The silence stretched on for long seconds. Then he spoke in a clear, calm voice that carried across the entire hall. Humanity acknowledges the gathering and wishes all species prosperity. That was it, nothing more. Captain Morrison sat back down, and the three humans returned to their silent watching. The reaction was immediate. Aliens burst into laughter throughout the hall. Some species made sounds that were like applause, but it was clear they were mocking the humans rather than praising them. The brief human introduction became an instant joke that spread through the crowd. As the ceremony continued with other business, the humans remained quiet and still. They had cemented their reputation as the galaxy's most socially awkward species. Every alien in the hall now believed that humans were either too stupid or too primitive to engage in proper communication. The three humans sat through hours more of meetings and speeches, never once changing their behavior. They answered questions, when asked directly, but always with the shortest possible responses. They never volunteered information, never made jokes, and never tried to make friends with the other species. By the end of the day, the mockery of humans had become so common that it was just background noise in the Great Hall. Aliens would casually mention human stupidity while discussing serious galactic business. The humans had become a running joke that everyone shared. As the gathering finally ended for the day, aliens filed out of the hall, still laughing about the silent humans. Captain Morrison, Dr. Grant, and Commander Rodriguez gathered their few belongings and prepared to leave as well. Not one alien approached them to say goodbye or make plans to meet again. The humans had successfully made themselves appear to be the least interesting and least capable species in the entire galaxy. They walked out of the Great Hall in complete silence, surrounded by the laughter and chatter of dozens of other species who thought they understood exactly what humans were all about. 3 months had passed since the gathering at Nexus Prime, and the story of the silent humans had spread across the galaxy like a bad joke that everyone knew. On trade stations, cargo ships, and colony worlds, aliens would tell each other about the strange mammals who could barely speak properly. Captain Beth Williams stood on the main deck of Epsilon 7, one of the busiest trade stations in the Outer Rim. Around her, dozens of different alien species bought and sold goods from across the galaxy. The air was filled with the sounds of bargaining in 100 different languages. Mechanical translators beeped and buzzed as they tried to keep up with all the different voices. Beth was known throughout the station as one of the most successful human traders. Her cargo ship, the Steady Hand, always carried the best goods and made the most profitable deals. But the aliens who did business with her found her very strange to work with. A group of insect-like creatures called chitin walked up to Beth's trading booth. They clicked and buzzed to each other in their own language before their leader spoke through a translator device. "Human Williams," the chitin leader said, "we wish to buy your Earth coffee beans. Our people have grown to enjoy this drink very much." Beth looked at the aliens with calm eyes. She pulled out a data pad and showed them the price list. 500 credits per container. Quality grade, a payment on delivery. The chitin leader expected her to explain why the coffee was so good, or to tell stories about where it came from, or to make jokes like other traders did. Instead, Beth just waited quietly for their answer. "This seems fair," the chitin said after a moment. "But can you tell us more about this coffee?" Our customers like to know about the products they buy. Earth-grown, high quality. Popular with most species, Beth replied. Her answer was so short it made the chitin uncomfortable. The deal was completed in just a few minutes. Beth got her payment, the chitin got their coffee, and everyone was satisfied. But as the insect aliens walked away, they clicked to each other about how strange it was to do business with someone who barely spoke. This same scene happened dozens of times every day on Epsilon 7. Human traders were known for being honest, fast, and profitable to work with. But they were also known for being impossible to have a real conversation with. Aliens started calling them the ghost traders because they seemed to appear, do business, and disappear without ever really being there. On the other side of the galaxy, the hegemony of United Species was holding an emergency meeting about growing threats to galactic peace. The massive council chamber was filled with representatives from every major species in known space. They had gathered to discuss pirate attacks, resource wars, and border disputes that were getting worse every day. Admiral Carl Stevens sat at the small human section of the chamber. Around him, alien representatives gave long speeches about their concerns and fears. The Zephyrians sang sad songs about colonies that had been attacked by pirates. The Cronets pounded their rocky fists on tables while demanding military action against raiders. The crystal silicates created light patterns that showed the locations of recent attacks. Hours passed as each species shared their problems and proposed solutions. Some wanted to build more defense stations. Others suggested forming joint military patrols. A few species even talked about hiring mercenary fleets to protect their trade routes. Admiral Stevens listened to everything with complete attention. He took notes on a datapad and watched the speakers carefully, but he never raised his hand to speak or tried to join the discussions. Finally, the council leader called on the human representative directly. Admiral Stevens, what does humanity think about these security threats? What solutions can your species offer? The entire chamber fell quiet as thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the human admiral. Stevens stood up slowly and looked around the room. His voice was clear and calm when he finally spoke. Humanity will fulfill its defense obligations as outlined in the Charter. That was his entire statement. Stevens sat back down and returned to taking notes. The other species waited for him to say more, but he remained silent. The alien representatives looked at each other with confusion and annoyance. Some thought the humans were being arrogant by refusing to share their military plans. Others believed the humans were too stupid to understand the seriousness of the situation. A few species whispered that maybe humans were secretly working with the pirates. Admiral Stevens heard all the whispers and saw all the suspicious looks, but his expression never changed. He continued to sit quietly and take notes while other species debated what to do about galactic security. Far away on the frontier world of New Haven, a different kind of story was playing out. The planet had become home to thousands of Zephyrian refugees who had fled from a terrible war on their homeworld. The blue-feathered aliens had arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the hope that someone would help them. Governor Amy Walsh had opened New Haven's doors to the refugees. Without hesitation, her human colonists had shared their food, built new shelters, and provided medical care to the wounded Zephyrians. It was one of the largest humanitarian efforts in recent galactic history. But despite this incredible kindness, the Zephyrian refugees found their human helpers very difficult to understand. Amy Walsh visited the refugee camps every day to check on their needs, but she spoke only when necessary and never stayed long for social visits. A young Zephyrian named Trill had been badly injured during the escape from his homeworld. Human doctors had saved his life with surgery and medicine. He wanted to thank them properly, but every time he tried to start a conversation, the humans would just nod politely and walk away. "I do not understand these mammals," Trill said to his nestmate while they sat in their temporary shelter. "They give us everything we need to survive, but they act like we are strangers. Do they not want to be friends?" His nestmate, an older Zephyrian named Kex, had lived longer and seen more of the galaxy. "I have heard stories about humans from other worlds. They are always like this. Some say they are just not very smart. Others think they are hiding something important. The refugees were grateful for human help, but they felt uncomfortable around their rescuers. The humans seemed kind but distant, helpful but cold. It was like being saved by friendly ghosts who did not really want to talk to you. Back on Epsilon 7, the alien traders continued to spread stories about human behavior. A group of Felinian merchants sat in a bar discussing their recent business deals. "I sold 3 ship engines to that human captain today," said one cat-like alien. "Good business, fair prices, but I swear she only said 12 words the entire time." "That is nothing," replied another Felinian. "I once spent 6 hours negotiating a grain contract with a human farmer. He communicated entirely through head nods and datapad messages. I am still not sure if he actually spoke at all." The stories grew more wild with each telling. Some aliens claimed to have met humans who had not spoken a single word during entire business trips. Others insisted that humans could only communicate through written messages and hand gestures. News networks across the galaxy picked up these stories and turned them into entertainment programs. Comedy shows made jokes about human social skills. News reporters did serious segments about whether humans were smart enough to be trusted with important galactic responsibilities. Dr. Kevin Torres worked as a psychologist on Harmony Station, a diplomatic world where many species came to resolve conflicts peacefully. He spent his days helping alien diplomats deal with stress and communication problems. But he never talked about his own species or tried to defend humans against the growing criticism. Kevin watched the news reports about human stupidity and listened to the jokes about human social failures. He kept detailed notes about how other species viewed his people, but he shared this information with no one. Like all humans in galactic society, he remained silent about things that might have been important to discuss. The galaxy had made up its mind about humans. They were seen as useful but limited creatures who could do simple jobs but were not smart enough for complex social interactions. Some species felt sorry for humans and tried to be patient with their communication problems. Others simply avoided dealing with humans whenever possible, but the humans themselves never tried to correct these misunderstandings. They continued to work quietly, trade efficiently, and help others when needed. They accepted being seen as the galaxy's most socially awkward species without complaint or explanation. The silence continued, and the mystery of human behavior grew deeper with each passing day. Every human in space seemed to be following the same pattern of minimal communication, and no one could figure out why. The jokes and speculation grew louder while the humans themselves remained as quiet as ever, unknown to the rest of the galaxy. There was a very good reason for this strange behavior, but that truth remained hidden behind the wall of human silence, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Deep in space, far from any alien eyes, the human ship HS Determination drifted silently through the darkness. Inside its metal halls, something very different was happening. The ship was filled with voices, laughter, and the kind of normal human conversation that no alien had ever heard. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the main briefing room where 20 human officers waited for him. These were some of the most experienced diplomats, scientists, and military leaders that humanity had in space. As Jake entered, several people called out greetings to him. "Hey, Jake, how did that meeting with the Chronic Trade delegation go?" "Captain, did you see the news report about humans being too stupid to understand economics?" Morrison, "My wife sent a message from Earth. She says the kids are asking why Daddy has to pretend to be dumb when he talks to aliens." Jake smiled and waved at his officers. When he spoke, his voice was warm and friendly, nothing like the cold, distant tone he used around aliens. "Good morning, everyone. I know you are all tired of pretending to be antisocial robots, but we need to talk about why we keep doing it." Dr. Lisa Grant sat at the front of the room with a large display screen behind her. She had spent years studying the effect that normal human behavior had on alien minds. Her research was classified at the highest levels because the truth was too dangerous to share with the galaxy. "For those of you who are new to deep space assignments," Lisa began, I need to explain why we cannot act like normal humans around other species. The simple truth is that when we behave naturally, we terrify them. A young officer named Lieutenant Danny Price raised his hand. He had just been assigned to his first diplomatic mission and did not understand the rules yet. Dr. Grant, I do not get it. Why would normal conversation scare aliens? We are not trying to hurt anyone. Lisa touched a control on her desk, and the screen behind her lit up with video footage. The recording showed a meeting from 5 years ago, during humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. In the video, a human diplomat named Frank Carter was talking with a group of alien ambassadors. Frank looked relaxed and happy as he spoke with the aliens. He was telling them about Earth and human culture. When one of the Zephyrian ambassadors made what sounded like a joke, Frank threw back his head and laughed loudly. It was a normal, friendly human laugh that any person from Earth would recognize. The effect on the aliens was immediate and shocking. The Zephyrian who had made the joke suddenly started shaking and backed away from Frank as fast as possible. 2 other alien diplomats made sounds of fear and ran from the room. A crystal silicate ambassador actually fell over and started flashing red lights in what appeared to be panic. Frank had no idea what he had done wrong, Lisa explained to the officers. He was just being friendly and social like any human would be. But listen to what the aliens said afterward. The video continued with audio of the alien ambassadors talking to each other after Frank had left the room. Their voices were filled with terror and confusion. "Did you hear the sounds that creature made?" one alien said. "It was like the hunting call of the most dangerous predator I've ever encountered. The way it showed its teeth when it made those noises," said another. "I felt like I was about to be eaten alive." "And its eyes," whispered a third alien. "When it looked at us and made those aggressive sounds, I could see the mind of a killer behind them." Lieutenant Price looked confused. But he was just laughing. How could that scare them so much? Commander Pete Harrison stood up from his seat. He was an older man who had been present during those first contact meetings. His job was to train new officers about alien psychology. "Danny, you have to understand that humans evolve very differently than most other intelligent species," Pete explained. "We come from a world where we were the top predators. Every part of our communication system developed to show dominance, confidence, and control." Pete walked to the front of the room and stood next to the video screen. When Frank laughed, he was not just making a happy sound. From an alien perspective, he was displaying his teeth, making loud, aggressive noises, and showing the kind of confidence that only a dangerous hunter would have. Dr. Lisa Grant brought up more research on the screen. Charts and graphs showed brain scans of different alien species when they heard human voices. We have tested this with dozens of different species over the past 5 years. When humans speak naturally, alien brains light up in the same parts that react to immediate physical threats. The research was clear and frightening. Human voices, even when speaking calmly, triggered fight or flight responses in most alien minds. When humans laughed, the alien brain interpreted it as the sound of a predator about to attack. When humans showed emotion or spoke with confidence, aliens saw signs of a creature that could kill them without effort. It gets worse, Lisa continued. We discovered that the effect is not just about sound. Human body language, facial expressions, and even the way we stand naturally all send the same message to alien brains. They see us as dangerous predators even when we are trying to be friendly. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a specialist in alien psychology, stood up to add more information. She had spent years living among different alien species to study their reactions to humans. "I have watched Kronits, who are natural warriors themselves, become nervous and submissive when humans speak with normal confidence. I have seen Zephyrians, who are usually very social, refuse to stay in the same room with humans who were just having casual conversations." The room fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. Many of them had families back on Earth who did not understand why their loved ones had to act like emotionless machines. When working in space, Sarah continued her explanation. "The worst part is that we cannot control it. This is not something we can turn off or hide. When humans act naturally, we unconsciously project an aura of apex predation that most alien minds cannot handle. Captain Morrison stepped forward to address his officers directly. This is why we have Protocol 7. Every human who works in space must learn to suppress their natural communication patterns. We speak only when necessary. We show minimal emotion. We avoid laughing, joking, or displaying the kind of confidence that comes naturally to us. Lieutenant Price raised his hand again. But sir, does not this make other species think we are stupid or antisocial? Yes, Jake replied simply. They think we are the dumbest, most socially awkward species in the galaxy. And we let them think that because the alternative is much worse. Commander Harrison pulled up another video on the screen. This one showed a human colony where the settlers had tried to act normally around alien visitors. The results were disastrous. Alien traders refused to do business there. Diplomatic missions ended in panic. Several alien species declared the colony a threat to galactic peace. The colony had to be evacuated, Pete explained. The humans were not doing anything wrong, but their presence became so disturbing to other species that war almost broke out. Now, those colonists live on worlds where no aliens ever visit? Dr. Mitchell showed more research data. We estimate that fewer than 3% of known intelligent species can tolerate normal human behavior without extreme psychological distress. The other 97% see us as existential threats when we act like ourselves. The briefing continued for another hour as the officers learned about the careful balance that humanity had to maintain in galactic society. They were taught how to speak in short, emotionless sentences. They practiced showing no facial expressions that might be interpreted as aggressive. They learned to move slowly and deliberately to avoid triggering predator recognition responses in alien minds. Remember, Captain Morrison said as the briefing ended, every human in space carries this burden. We are all pretending to be less than we are so that other species can feel safe around us. It is not fair, but it is necessary for peace. The officers filed out of the briefing room, their voices immediately returning to normal human conversation as they talked among themselves. But they all knew that as soon as they left the ship and interacted with aliens again, they would have to become the silent, awkward humans that the galaxy expected them to be. The truth was simple and terrible. Humans were not antisocial or unintelligent. They were predators who had evolved to be so naturally dominant that their mere presence could cause psychological trauma in other intelligent species. The galaxy's mockery of human social skills was actually a testament to incredible human self-control and kindness, but this truth remained hidden in classified briefings and secret research reports. As far as the rest of the galaxy knew, humans were just strange mammals who could barely communicate properly. And for the sake of peace, that misunderstanding would have to continue. The emergency alarm screamed through the halls of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. Red lights flashed in every corridor as thousands of alien officials rushed to their emergency stations. The massive asteroid heading toward Kepler Prime had been detected just 6 hours ago, and time was running out fast. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the main command center watching dozens of alien species argue about what to do. The asteroid was the size of a small moon and moving so fast that conventional weapons could not stop it. Kepler Prime was home to over 2 billion Zephyrians, and they had less than 18 hours before impact. The bird-like Zephyrian Prime Minister was singing a desperate song of fear while his military advisors chirped frantically around him. The rock-bodied Chronet generals pounded their fists on tables as they shouted about impossible battle plans. Crystal silicate scientists created flashing light displays, showing mathematical calculations that all pointed to the same terrible conclusion. There was no time to evacuate 2 billion people. There were no weapons in the galaxy powerful enough to destroy an asteroid that size. Kepler Prime was going to die, and everyone in the command center knew it. Admiral Carl Stevens received an urgent message on his communication device. The text was short, but it changed everything. Earth Command authorizes Protocol 0. Repeat, Protocol 0 is now active. Use whatever means necessary to save Kepler Prime. Stevens looked at the message for a long moment. Protocol Zero meant that humans could abandon their careful communication restrictions. For the first time in 5 years, they were allowed to act like themselves around aliens. The order came directly from the highest levels of human government. Stevens walked over to Captain Morrison and showed him the message. Jake read it quickly and nodded. "Understood, Admiral. I will inform all human personnel immediately." Jake activated his communication system and sent a coded message to every human ship, station, and facility in the sector. The message was simple. Protocol Zero active. Natural communication authorized. Save Kepler Prime at all costs. The change was immediate and dramatic. Captain Beth Williams commanded a squadron of 12 human destroyers that had been quietly following the alien fleets. When she received the Protocol Zero message, she opened a communication channel to all ships in the area. For the first time in years, she spoke with her natural human confidence. "All vessels, this is Captain Williams of the Human Destroyer Fleet," she said. Her voice carried the kind of absolute authority that had made her a successful military commander. "We have weapons capable of destroying the asteroid, but we need precise coordination from all Allied forces." The effect on the alien crews was immediate. The Zephyrian captain of a nearby cruiser started making distress sounds when he heard Beth's voice. The natural confidence and command presence that humans took for granted sounded like the voice of a dangerous predator to his bird-like mind. "Human vessel," the Zephyrian captain replied in a shaking voice. "Your communication patterns are disturbing our crew. Please return to your normal speech methods." "Negative," Beth replied firmly. "We do not have time for communication protocols. Either follow our instructions or get out of our way." The alien captain fell silent. Something in Beth's voice made it impossible for him to argue. His crew began following her orders without question, even though their instincts told them they were taking commands from something that could kill them. Dr. Lisa Grant was aboard the science vessel Steady Progress, working with alien scientists to calculate the exact trajectory needed to destroy the asteroid. When Protocol Zero was activated, she began speaking to her alien colleagues with normal human intensity. "Listen carefully," Lisa said to a group of Chronet physicists. "Our weapons use focused antimatter charges that require precise timing. I need you to adjust your gravitational calculations by 0.7% and recalibrate your sensor arrays immediately." The massive, rock-based aliens stared at her with what passed for shock among their species. Dr. Grant was no longer the quiet, awkward human they had been working with. She spoke with the confidence of someone who expected to be obeyed without question. One of the Chronet scientists tried to argue with her calculations. "Human Grant, our mathematics show that your proposed trajectory will not work. The asteroid's rotation will cause the charges to detonate in the wrong location." Lisa looked directly at the alien scientist. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Your mathematics are wrong. Adjust your calculations now, or 2 billion people will die because you wasted time arguing with me." The Chronet scientist felt something deep in his mind telling him to submit to this human's authority. Even though his species were natural warriors, something about Lisa's tone made him want to do exactly what she said. He began adjusting his calculations without further argument. Commander Ryan Burke took control of the joint military operation from the main command ship. When he activated Protocol Zero, he began coordinating the attack with the kind of natural leadership that humans used in their own military. "All attack vessels, form up in Delta formation," Ryan ordered over the fleet communications. "Human destroyers will take point position. Allied vessels will provide covering fire and sensor support." The alien military commanders found themselves automatically following Ryan's orders. His voice carried the kind of authority that their minds associated with pack leaders and alpha predators. Even the proud Chronet generals, who normally argued with every command they received, began moving their ships into the positions Ryan specified. "Human commander," one of the Chronet generals said nervously, "your species has never led a joint military operation before. Are you certain you can coordinate this attack successfully?" Ryan's response was immediate and confident. General, I've been planning military operations since before your species developed spaceflight. My people wrote the textbooks on coordinated assault tactics. Follow my orders and we will save Kepler Prime. The Chronet General felt his natural aggression drain away when he heard Ryan's voice. Something in the human's tone convinced him that arguing would be both pointless and dangerous. He began following orders without further questions. The attack formation came together in less than 30 minutes, faster than any joint operation in galactic history. Human commanders took charge of every aspect of the mission while alien crews followed their instructions with uncharacteristic obedience. Captain Morrison coordinated the final assault from the command center, his voice no longer restricted by communication protocols carried across the fleet channels with absolute authority. All vessels, prepare for synchronized antimatter bombardment, Jake ordered. Fire on my mark in 3.2. Mark. 12 human destroyers fired their most powerful weapons directly into the heart of the massive asteroid. The antimatter charges detonated with the force of a small star, splitting the asteroid into thousands of harmless pieces that would burn up in Kepler Prime's atmosphere. The mission was a complete success. 2 billion Zephyrians had been saved from certain death. But the cost of that success became clear immediately. As soon as the asteroid was destroyed, alien crews across the fleet began requesting immediate transfers away from human vessels. The Zephyrian officers who had worked with Captain Williams reported severe psychological distress. Several Chronet warriors, despite being natural fighters themselves, required medical treatment for anxiety attacks triggered by Ryan's command. Voice. The Galactic Council received hundreds of formal complaints within hours of the mission's end. Alien governments demanded explanations for the disturbing change in human behavior. Several species filed official protests claiming that humans had used some form of psychological warfare against their personnel. Most disturbing of all, the Zephyrian government of Kepler Prime, despite being saved from extinction, formally requested that human forces maintain a minimum distance of 10 light-years from all Zephyrian worlds. They were grateful for their lives, but they never wanted to experience human natural behavior again. The truth about human nature had been revealed in the most dramatic way possible. When humans dropped their careful masks and acted like themselves, they became something that most of the galaxy found too frightening to be around. Captain Morrison sat in his quarters after the mission, reading reports from alien commanders who had worked with human forces during the crisis. Every report mentioned the same thing. Humans had been incredibly effective leaders, but being around them during natural communication had been one of the most psychologically disturbing experiences of their lives. The galaxy had been saved, but the price was the end of human secrecy. Everyone now knew that the quiet, awkward humans they had been mocking were actually apex predators who had been choosing to appear harmless. The mask had slipped, and there was no putting it back on. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was different this time. Where once there had been loud chatter and laughter from dozens of alien species, now there was careful quiet. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their seats and spoke in whispers, stealing nervous glances at the human delegation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the central speaking platform, looking out at thousands of alien faces. For 5 years, she had sat silently at human tables while other species mocked her people. Today, for the first time, she was going to tell the galaxy the truth about human behavior. The Galactic Council leader, an ancient energy being, spoke first. Dr. Rodriguez, the Council has called this emergency session to discuss the events at Kepler Prime. Many of our member species have expressed concern about the change in human communication patterns during the crisis. Elena nodded and activated the large display screen behind her. Images appeared showing human personnel during the asteroid mission. In every picture, the humans looked confident, authoritative, and completely in control. Honored Council members. Elena began, I stand before you today to reveal a truth that humanity has kept hidden for 5 years. We are not socially awkward. We are not unintelligent. We are predators who have been choosing to appear harmless. A wave of surprise sounds rippled through the alien audience. Zephyrian delegates chirped nervously to each other. The Chronet. Representatives made low rumbling noises of confusion. Elena continued, her voice carrying the natural human confidence that the galaxy had never heard before. Every human who works in space has been following strict communication protocols designed to hide our true nature from you. We speak briefly, show no emotion, and avoid natural conversation because when we act normally, we terrify you. She touched a control and the screen showed brain scan images from different alien species. These are medical scans taken during the Kepler Prime mission. They show what happens in your minds when humans communicate naturally. Your brains react to our voices, our laughter, and our confidence as if you were facing an immediate physical threat. The silicate representative created flashing light patterns that indicated extreme disturbance. Through a translator, its words appeared on screens throughout the hall. Are you saying that humans have been deliberately deceiving us about their nature? Yes, Elena replied simply. We discovered during first contact that our natural behavior causes severe psychological distress in most intelligent species. Rather than frighten you or cause diplomatic problems, we chose to suppress our normal communication patterns. She showed video footage from the early first contact meetings, including the incident where Frank Carter's laughter had caused multiple alien ambassadors to flee in terror. The audience watched in uncomfortable silence, as they saw their own species representatives react with panic to simple human friendliness. This is what happens when humans act like humans, Elena explained. Your minds interpret our natural confidence as predatory aggression. Our laughter sounds like hunting calls to you. Our casual dominance displays trigger every survival instinct your species possess. A young Zephyrian diplomat stood up, his blue feathers trembling with nervousness. Dr. Rodriguez, if this is true, then why are you telling us now? Why reveal this secret? Elena looked directly at the alien, and he immediately sat back down when he saw the intensity in her eyes. Because the secret is already out. During the Kepler Prime crisis, we were forced to abandon our communication protocols to save 2 billion of your people. Every alien who worked with us during that mission now knows what we really are. The hall fell completely silent. Many aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they remembered the reports from Kepler Prime, the accounts of human commanders who spoke with terrifying authority, of human scientists who gave orders that could not be disobeyed, of human voices that made brave warriors feel like frightened prey. Elena brought up more data on the screen. Our xenopsychologists estimate that 97% of known intelligent species cannot tolerate normal human behavior without significant psychological distress. We evolved as apex predators on a world where we dominated every other life form. Every aspect of our communication developed to project dominance, control, and lethality. She paused and looked around the hall, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of different species. Each alien she looked at felt the same instinctive urge to look away or submit. For 5 years, every human in galactic society has voluntarily suppressed the communication patterns that come naturally to us. We have allowed you to think we are stupid, antisocial, and primitive because the alternative was to be seen as the threats we were born to be. The Chronet General Vorthek, who had once laughed at human social awkwardness, stood up slowly. His massive rocky form seemed smaller than usual as he spoke. Human Rodriguez, are you saying that your people have been protecting us from yourselves? That is exactly what I am saying, Elena replied. Every time a human trader spoke only in short sentences, they were choosing not to use the commanding voice that would have made you want to submit to them. Every time a human diplomat sat quietly during meetings, they were choosing not to display the natural dominance that would have made you see them as a threat. She showed more footage from the Kepler Prime mission, focusing on the alien reactions to human leadership. Look at your own people's responses. When Captain Williams gave orders with her natural authority, your crews followed them without question. When Commander Burke coordinated the attack, even your bravest warriors found themselves obeying his every command. The evidence was undeniable. In the videos, alien military officers who normally argued with every order were shown following human commands with immediate obedience. Alien scientists were shown accepting human expertise without question. Even the proudest species had found themselves submitting to human authority when Protocol Zero was activated. Elena's voice grew softer, but somehow more intense. The humans you saved 2 billion Zephyrians were not different from the quiet humans you have been mocking. They were the same people, finally allowed to be themselves. And your reaction to seeing us as we really are tells you everything you need to know about why we chose to hide. She gestured to the nervous quiet that filled the hall. Look around you. This is how you behave when you know what humans actually are. You speak in whispers. You avoid eye contact. You feel the presence of something your minds recognize as dangerous even when we are trying to be peaceful. The truth was settling over the galaxy like a heavy blanket. The realization that they had been mocking creatures who were deliberately restraining themselves for everyone else's comfort. The understanding that human silence had not been weakness, but incredible self-control. Elena concluded her presentation with simple words that carried enormous weight. Humanity chose to be seen as the galaxy's most socially inept species rather than be recognized as its most naturally dangerous one. We let you laugh at us because we would rather be thought of as harmless fools than feared as the predators we were born to be. The Galactic Council session ended in unprecedented quiet. There were no jokes about human social skills, no laughter about their communication problems. Just the uncomfortable awareness that they had spent 5 years mocking creatures who could have dominated them effortlessly but had chosen kindness instead. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. The mockery stopped completely, replaced by a mixture of respect, gratitude, and carefully maintained distance. Alien species began requesting that human representatives maintain minimum safe distances during diplomatic meetings. Trade negotiations were conducted through intermediaries. Military exercises were planned to avoid direct human-alien interaction. Captain Jake Morrison found himself at another Galactic Council gathering 6 months later. The hall was quieter than it had ever been before. When aliens spoke, they did so softly and respectfully. When they looked at the human delegation, it was with the kind of careful attention given to sleeping predators. The humans had returned to their disciplined silence. But now it was understood and appreciated rather than mocked. They were no longer seen as the galaxy's most awkward species. They were recognized as its most dangerous and most remarkably restrained. As the gathering ended, Jake allowed himself a small, natural smile when speaking privately with Dr. Grant. A nearby Chronet delegate noticed the expression and instinctively stepped backward, his warrior instincts recognizing something in that simple human smile that set off every danger signal his species possessed. Jake immediately returned to his carefully neutral expression, but the message was clear. The galaxy now understood why everyone kept their distance from humans. Not because humans were antisocial or unintelligent, but because they were apex predators who were choosing to be civilized about it. The silence continued, but now it was a gift that the galaxy finally knew how to appreciate.